to 901 Woodworking. I'm Huibert Mees, and today we're going to talk about how to choose a wine barrel for wine barrel furniture. So you've decided you want to make some wine barrel furniture. There's lots of opportunities and possibilities for what you can make. Chairs, tables, clocks, all kinds of things. The possibilities really are endless. But first, you need to have a barrel. So how do you go about choosing which barrel to use? There are lots of places where you can find barrels. I found them on eBay, Craigslist, any kind of online marketplace where people sell things. You can find barrels for sale. And they range in prices anywhere from $40 up to about $100 per barrel. These barrels came from a winery in Napa Valley, close to where I live here in Northern California. So, what do you look for when you're looking at a barrel? What are the things that you need to check out before you choose which barrel to use? There are 6 things that I look for when I'm choosing a barrel. I look for overall condition, barrel height, stave widths, stave thickness, fill hole condition, and the top and bottom construction. Let's look at each one of these. Overall condition. The overall condition of a barrel is just a visual check. It's pretty simple. You're looking at the barrel, seeing what it looks like. You're looking for whether or not the wood is very weathered. You're looking for if the wood is still tight, if the rings are still tight. Anything that can tell you a bit about how this barrel was treated. This barrel here, for instance, is pretty new. I only got this one recently, so I know it's in good condition. You can see the wood is nice and smooth. There's no weathering on it. There are some marks on it, but I don't care. I think that's nice. That adds character to the wood. There is a stain here from the wine that's come through the wood. That's fine too. It's not a problem at all. Probably what this is, it's concentrated around the fill hole. This was spillage when the wine was proofed or when it was transferred from barrel to barrel. So I'm not worried about this. This looks really good. The wood is in good condition. It's solid. It's still smooth on the outside. The rings are still tight. This is a good barrel. This barrel over here, on the other hand, is quite old. It's been sitting outside, the wood is weathered, it's a rougher surface. You can see cracks starting to appear between the staves. The rings are loose. So this barrel has seen some age. It's been outside quite a while. The staves are no longer tight. They are no longer all in the same bow either. Some of them have relaxed a bit. The other thing you'll notice on these older barrels is they start to open up in between the staves. This happens when the barrel has not been used in a long time and the wood starts to dry out and the staves become loose. They start to move around. This barrel, it's still useful. The staves still have a lot of use to them, but it wouldn't be my first choice. Let's talk about barrel height. The height of a barrel, most barrels are about the same. They're approximately 37 inches tall. However, there are barrels that are shorter, and you need to watch out for that, because if you need to use a stave of full length, you may not want the shorter ones that come out of these barrels. This stave, for instance, came from a barrel that was shorter, and as you can see, it's about 3 inches shorter than this other barrel. Nothing wrong with it. The stave is absolutely fine. But you just need to be aware that this stave is shorter. So if you want to use a full-length stave for some particular project, you may not want to use one from this particular barrel. In other cases, for the seats, the slats in the seat on an Adirondack chair, for instance, you're going to cut off the ends anyway, so the total length of the stave really doesn't matter. So for that, this would be fine. But it's something to be careful of and to watch out for. Next is stave widths. A barrel is made out of approximately 30 or so staves that are all varying widths. They're all different. You'd think that they'd make a barrel out of the same width stave all the way around, put them together, put the hoops on, and be done. But they don't. The staves are all different widths. And from what I can tell, it looks to be pretty random. So each barrel is going to be different, and you should look at the stave widths to see what you've got. Now, this barrel in particular has a bunch of very narrow staves, and it has some wider staves as well. This is important to know and to look for because certain parts of a chair, for instance, require staves of different thicknesses. The arms, for instance, need a wide stave. So if you're looking at a barrel that has no wide staves at all, then that barrel is not going to be very useful for an Adirondack chair, for instance. The easiest way to do this is to look at the top. You can see where the breaks are between the staves. It's pretty easy to see. If you find a wide one, like this one over here, then you can follow it down the side of the barrel. Just make sure that it is indeed one piece and not two pieces that just look like they're together. And you can look at the width and just get an overall judgment for how useful that particular piece might be. The fourth thing I look for is stave thickness. Not all staves are the same thickness. Within a particular barrel, they will all be about the same thickness, but from barrel to barrel, they can vary. And this is important to know. In an Adirondack chair, for instance, there are two pieces, the rear leg runners, that require a thicker stave. The reason for this is when you sit in an Adirondack chair, your weight is concentrated in approximately the middle of that piece. That puts that leg in a lot of bending. The strength of those staves is therefore determined by its thickness. A thicker stave will of course be stronger than a thinner stave. It is possible, if you use a thinner stave for those parts, that they can break. If a heavier person or someone sits down hard in the chair, it is possible for those parts to break. And if that sounds like the voice of experience, you're right, it is. So choosing a thicker stave for this part is important. The way to know the thickness of the staves in the barrel that you're looking at is to bring along a cheap pair of calipers. They don't have to be very accurate because you're not measuring to a high accuracy. A pair like this works just fine. And the way you do it is in the hole, the fill hole. You take your calipers, stick them through the hole, and measure the thickness of the stave. This particular one is about 1 inch thick, which is about the thickest that I have found in any barrels. On the other hand, this barrel over here, if I measure it, it measures only 7/8 of an inch thick. That doesn't sound like a lot, 1/8 of an inch difference, but this stave will be only 75% as strong as the stave from the 1 inch thick barrel. That's a big difference. And especially for that particular part of an Adirondack chair, it can be very important. For the other parts of a chair or other projects, tables, clocks, whatever you're making, the thinner stave may work out fine. So don't just disregard that barrel completely, but just know that for those two parts of a chair, you wouldn't want to use the staves from that particular barrel. Number 5 on the list, this is the condition of the stave around the fill hole. In the winemaking process, a plug is put into this hole and it gets removed and put back in several times during the life of the barrel. What this can lead to is a crack on either side of the fill hole in this particular stave. This barrel doesn't show any cracking, so it's a good candidate. But I have seen barrels where this crack is quite prominent and it basically makes that stave useless. The last thing I look for in a barrel is the way the top and the bottom are constructed. There are basically two ways that this is done. This barrel has the top as a single panel that has no reinforcements in it, and it's just a bunch of wooden pieces put together and cut into a circle. This barrel over here is made slightly differently. It has the same type of top construction, but there is an additional reinforcement that is held in by a number of pegs. The reason that this is done is to add strength to the top and bottom plates and to allow those to be made a little thinner. The problem that this causes is the way that this reinforcement is retained. It is held in place by 8 pegs that sit in holes that have been drilled into the tops of the staves. It's a small peg that sits in a hole that has been drilled here in the top of the stave and holds this thing in place. However, that leaves a hole in the top of the stave that I personally don't find very attractive. Here is one, for instance, that has this hole in the top. It's in a very prominent location, and if you use this on a chair, this is going to be very visible. And to me, that's just not very attractive. You could, of course, use these staves on a part of the chair where the ends will get cut off, parts like the slats of the seat. So for those parts, these are perfectly fine, but it's something to keep in mind. Sometimes what will happen though is in this barrel, for instance, one of the staves that has these holes drilled in it is one of the widest staves. So this would have been a great candidate for an armrest for a chair, but unfortunately for me, with the holes drilled into it, it gets ruined. So that takes the usefulness of this barrel away from me. It doesn't necessarily disqualify the barrel, something to think about. So there you have it, the 6 things that I look for when I'm looking for a barrel for barrel furniture. I hope this was helpful. Good luck with your search and your barrel furniture. Leave a comment in the comments section. I love hearing from everyone. In the next video, we'll talk about how to take one of these barrels apart. See you then.